Donald Trump is facing mounting scrutiny as tensions between the United States and Iran continue to escalate. Some analysts warn that the conflict could be entering a new and potentially dangerous phase, one that might involve deeper U.S. military involvement in the region. Recent developments suggest that the situation may be evolving quickly, and comparisons are already being made to earlier moments in history when military deployments gradually expanded into larger conflicts. To understand why experts are raising concerns, it's important to examine what new information has emerged over the past several hours, and what it could mean for the trajectory of the crisis. Reports from the Wall Street Journal and other outlets indicate that the United States Department of Defense has approved the deployment of a Marine Expeditionary Unit to the Middle East. According to officials familiar with the decision, the deployment was requested by United States Central Command as part of preparations related to the growing conflict. A Marine Expeditionary Unit, commonly known as an MEU, typically consists of roughly 2,000 to 2,500 Marines, along with aircraft, naval support, and logistics units capable of rapid deployment in crisis situations. Sources indicate that the Marines may originate from the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center 29 Palms, one of the largest Marine Corps training facilities in the United States. The significance of such a deployment is not necessarily that it signals an immediate ground invasion. However, historically, Marine Expeditionary Units are often used as the initial rapid response force during military escalations. That historical context has led some observers to draw comparisons with earlier conflicts, particularly the early stages of the Vietnam War. One of the pivotal moments in that conflict occurred on March 8, 1965, when approximately 3,500 Marines from the 9th Marine Expeditionary Brigade landed in Vietnam. At the time, the deployment was described as a defensive move intended to protect American installations. However, historians now view that moment as the beginning of direct U.S. ground combat operations in Vietnam. Over the years that followed, troop levels expanded dramatically, from a few thousand soldiers to more than 500,000 American personnel stationed in the region. Because of that historical precedent, analysts are closely watching whether the current deployment represents a limited operation or the beginning of a broader military escalation. At the same time, geopolitical dynamics surrounding the conflict are becoming increasingly complex. Officials and analysts have raised concerns about the roles of other global powers, particularly Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, and whether their governments may be providing assistance or strategic coordination with Iran. During a recent interview on Fox and Friends, Trump was asked about the possibility that Russia might be offering support to Iran during the conflict. In response, Trump suggested that geopolitical alliances often involve reciprocal support between nations. He noted that the United States itself provides assistance to Ukraine in its ongoing war with Russia. That exchange highlights a broader reality in international relations. Major powers frequently support different sides in regional conflicts. However, critics argue that such dynamics can increase the risk of escalation if rival powers become more directly involved. Another area of concern involves the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical maritime choke points in the global energy supply chain. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil passes through the strait each day. Recent reports suggest that Iranian forces have increased military activity in the area, including actions targeting commercial shipping vessels. If shipping through the Strait of Hormuz becomes significantly disrupted, it could trigger major consequences for global energy markets. Oil prices, shipping costs, and insurance rates for vessels operating in the region could all rise rapidly. Such developments would not only affect governments, but also consumers worldwide through increased fuel prices. The economic ripple effects are already beginning to appear. Several international events in the region have been disrupted by the growing instability. For example, Bahrain Grand Prix and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix have reportedly faced cancellation or postponement due to security concerns. Major international sporting events often serve as indicators of regional stability, and organizers typically cancel them only when significant safety concerns arise. Meanwhile, world leaders are closely monitoring the situation. Emmanuel Macron recently emphasized that Western nations should maintain coordinated economic pressure on Russia, particularly regarding sanctions tied to the war in Ukraine. Macron argued that fluctuations in oil prices should not lead to changes in the international coalition's stance toward Russia. His remarks reflect concerns among European leaders about maintaining unity while managing multiple global crises simultaneously. Back in the United States, political leaders are debating what the next phase of policy should look like. Some analysts have raised questions about whether airstrikes alone can achieve strategic goals in a conflict of this scale. One lawmaker who discussed the issue publicly is Keith Self, who noted that historically, air campaigns alone rarely lead to decisive outcomes in large military conflicts. At the same time, he emphasized that decisions about deploying ground forces would require careful evaluation and congressional oversight. These discussions illustrate the broader policy dilemma: how to balance military strategy with the risks of prolonged conflict. Beyond military strategy, the economic consequences of the conflict are becoming increasingly visible. Agriculture officials in the United States have warned that fertilizer prices may rise due to disruptions in global supply chains connected to the Middle East. During a briefing, Brooke Rollins explained that key fertilizer ingredients such as nitrogen and urea could be affected by regional instability. If those prices rise significantly, American farmers could face higher production costs during planting season. Government officials have indicated that financial support measures for farmers are being considered if necessary. The administration has also highlighted domestic energy policy as a key factor in managing the economic impact of global conflicts. During recent remarks, J.D. Vance emphasized the importance of increasing domestic energy production. According to Vance, strengthening energy independence could help shield the United States from price shocks caused by geopolitical disruptions abroad. Energy policy has long been a central issue in debates about national security and economic resilience. Supporters of expanded domestic production argue that it reduces vulnerability to external supply disruptions. Critics argue that long-term energy stability also requires international cooperation and diversification of energy sources. Taken together, these developments illustrate how complex and interconnected modern geopolitical conflicts have become. Military strategy, global alliances, economic markets, and domestic politics all intersect in ways that can rapidly change the direction of events. For now, the key question remains whether the conflict will stabilize through diplomacy or continue escalating into a broader confrontation. The deployment of additional forces, the involvement of global powers, and the volatility of energy markets will all play a role in determining what happens next. As this situation continues to evolve, staying informed will be essential. If you found this breakdown helpful and want more in-depth analysis of global politics and major international developments, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and share it with others so more viewers can stay informed about the stories shaping the world today.